with you today to talk about something that is a major problem that we have today. So, Lord, bless our time together in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, today I want to talk about priority. Did you know that the English word priority was invented back in the 1400s? Now, what that simply meant back in the 1400s was the first thing, the first priority. The It was singular in its application. It meant that you made something in your life a first priority. It meant that you did something very, very well, that you didn't put different things in place instead of this singular thing, whatever it would mean. Back in the 1900s, they changed the word priority from a singular meaning to multiple meanings. And that's where things really got complicated. Because instead of having a priority, we had priorities. And that meant that we would, instead of having one singular thing that we did well, we tried to do so many things really well. And that's where it really began to break down. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, I was chatting with my fellow grandfather, whose name is Daryl. Daryl has chosen to be a farmer. His dad was a farmer. His grandfather was a farmer. Now, not everybody wants to be, the profession of their father or their family, but Daryl had chosen to do that. And he's a very good farmer. And we were talking yesterday about farming. And as soon as we started talking about farming, Daryl's eyes lit up. He was excited about being a farmer. He loves being close to the land. He loves the lifestyle that it provides. He's not a multiple type of farmer like my son is, but you see, he just farms grain. He farms, plants, crops. And then what he does is he takes the crops off in the fall. So he just finished planting. It was planting season. And so he just finished doing that. And he's going to enjoy the summer. And then he's going to, in the fall, of course, take off the crop. And that is his singular purpose in life. Now, he has other interests, excuse me, other things that he does, but farming is his number one priority. Today, however, we are having people, and society has taken this word priority and made it priorities. And so what happens is people are shoved into holes where they were never designed to do. We've often heard the term the Renaissance man, the guy who can do everything and does everything well. Or the woman, for example, who is now told, listen, you don't stay home and raise children. Instead, what you do is you go out and you try to balance a career of, doing some sort of occupation, then coming home and cooking meals, cleaning the house, and raising children. It is a real problem. Society has taken that word priority and turned it into a multitask situation. And many people are multitasking every single day, and they feel overwhelmed, they feel anxious, they feel stressed, they feel out of their element, and it is a real problem. Instead of having a singular priority and, focusing on that single priority, what we try to do is we try to balance different priorities all at the same time. And the problem is, of course, we don't do anything very well. So, my exhortation for you today is get a priority, not a set of priorities. Now, what I'm encouraging you to do is, for example, if you have something to do today, make it a priority and a certain amount of time for that particular thing. If you, for example, are heading off to work today, that is, of course, your priority. Now, today is Sunday. So today is supposed to be a day of rest. So make it your priority today to rest. If you have to go to work today, those hours that you are at work, of course, make it a priority for if you happen to be an employer or an employee, those hours are your priority during that time period. But when work is over, make it a priority to, if you are alone, make a priority to rest. If you have a family, make them a priority. Don't bring work home. The problem with, for example, when we had the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, what people were encouraged to do is to stay home and not go to work. Then we had a whole different set of problems because what happened is people were at home and they were taking work home. And so the work life balance became, very difficult and the lines got blurred. Instead, of course, enjoying that home environment and allowing that home environment to be a de-stressing situation, people were now, sneaking away to do work when they should have been enjoying time with themselves, with their spouse, with their family. And that is part of our society's problem today, is the fact that we are doing several things at several times and we're not doing it very well. And we don't feel complete. We don't feel as if we're doing our very best. That's why I am encouraging you that when you are doing something, either for yourself or for, an employer, make sure that it is a priority for that time period. If you have, for example, you say to your spouse, hey, let's go out for supper. Go out for supper, okay? But don't sit there and play on your phone and, basically talk to others in that time period. Spend that time communicating. Spend that time with your spouse. One of the funniest things that I saw just in a recent encounter, my wife and I went out for supper and we were enjoying this wonderful dinner. And right across the aisle from us was an older couple. And I think they should have known better, but they were talking on their phone. They were, basically glued to that phone and they weren't talking. And so the opportunity to be able to spend time together was lost. And that's because society has totally turned everything around when it comes to the word priority. It tells us in our society today, you got to do several things at several times. We call it multitasking. But the problem with multitasking is that we feel overwhelmed and we can't concentrate on one thing. Believe it or not, we are designed to concentrate on one thing at a time and not try to do multitude things at time. A perfect example is when you're driving. They have a law against distracted driving because so many people in the past were distracted while they were driving. It used to be cool to be on your phone while you were driving, talking, and someone says, oh, they are important. But the reality of the situation was when you are, of course, driving, you need to have full concentration. And when you're on your phone, when you are distracted, the consequences could be devastating. So there is a perfect example of course, making it a priority. One of the things that I do during the summer, for example, is I ride a motorcycle. I want to tell you something. I have to keep my full concentration on my riding because other people may not see me, and I have to practice defensive riding. That's right, because if I don't have full concentration, I could lose my life. So priority is important. Like I said before, in the 14th century, it was, singular. It meant one thing at one time. But today, we've turned it into, priorities. This is my priorities. So I'm going to do these several things at the same time. But we find very quickly that, we weren't designed that way. We were designed to do one thing well at one time, not several things well at one time, because something is not going to be done as well as it could be done. So I try to, do a priority one thing at a time, because I've learned that if I don't do one thing well at one time, there are consequences. Like I said before, families are being stretched. Moms and dads, men and women are being stretched because you know what? We're trying to do so much at the same time, and we're missing it and we're messing it, and it actually hurts our self-esteem and it hurts our self-worth. So that's why I encourage that if you are at work, do your job well. But once you get away from work, do what you need to do to make your life better. Make self care important and the care of others as well as important. And wherever you find yourself, make sure that what you are doing is a priority. For example, if you're in the grocery store, buy your groceries. Then when you are in the checkout line, maybe you have an opportunity to talk to somebody. That could be a priority at the time. Do one thing at a time, do it well. And I guarantee that you'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel better about the situation, and you won't feel stressed. You won't feel anxious about the situation. I have a friend who practices priorities, and his life is so much better because he did that. He came to me and said, I just feel overwhelmed. I said, why don't you try to do one thing at one time very, very well? I said, break it up, compartmentalize your life. I said, when you are at work, do your work well. But then when you're at home, spend time with your wife and your family. Spend time also as well, doing something that you want to do. This guy happened to be a fisherman. So he would go out from time to time and go fishing. And it was, he said, when I started practicing, one thing at one time, he says, when I recognized that priority meant one thing at one time, he says, I was able to de-stress my life. I wasn't trying to multitask at the same time. He says, when I went home, I turned off my phone. He says, when I went home, I didn't answer emails. He says, when I went home, I choose to detach myself from what the world wanted, and I made a decision to do what I needed to do, whether it was spending time with my spouse, spending time with my kids. He says, my kids wanted to see me. They wanted to spend time with me. He says, but before, he says, I was a slave to my phone. I was a slave to my computer. I was a slave to my job. And he says, I had a long conversation with my employer about the situation. And I told him what was going on. And he and I agreed together that that I needed to make certain priorities. He said, because I knew that I wasn't doing the very best for my job. He says, when I went to bed, he says, I was looking at my tablet, I was looking at my phone, and I wasn't able to sleep well. That's another problem that we're dealing with today. So many people, for example, don't understand that there's a thing called the blue light syndrome. And the blue light syndrome is basically when you have a tablet, when you have a phone or you have a computer, it affects your brain. and your brain is not able to shut off. That's why many modern people say to us, the professionals say, turn off your phone, turn off your tablet, turn off your computer 2 hours before you go to bed. Because what will happen is your brain needs to have that time to relax. And if you are on your phone until before you go to bed, you're going to stay awake. Why? Because your brain has been overstimulated. That's why they tell, for example, that children should not have a tablet or a phone at least 2 hours before they go to bed, because we are designed to distress. Our body needs to relax. And when you're looking at a phone, when you're looking at a tablet, when you're looking at a computer, you know what's happening? You're overstimulating your brain. You need to have that priority, that time to be able to, allow your body to, of course, relax. And then, of course, you can go to sleep. That's why many sleep experts say you need to have a special sleep routine. It helps you to sleep. And all of a sudden, you'll get a restful night. So many people, did you know that 8 out of every 10 people all suffer from a thing called insomnia? And most of the insomnia that we have is self made, because we are trying to do too many things at one time. How many times have you laid at night and you've been thinking about things that happen during the day, or things that, become important? Why? Because your brain is slowing down and you're not allowing it, or life hasn't allowed it to, of course, decompress, to slow down. And that's why many people don't sleep well, because they practice blue light, because there's too many priorities in their lives. That's why I'm encouraging you to have one priority during one time period. Wherever you find yourself, learn to do that one thing well. When you're home, learn to do it well. When you're driving, don't get distracted. When you're in the grocery store, don't allow impulse buying to be the fashion fare of the day. Go in there with a list. Many people actually today are doing online shopping. Why are they doing that? So that they can, save money. My son-in-law, for example, is an individual who used to practice impulse buying. He'd go to the grocery store, and what he saw, he would buy. He turned to online shopping, and he had his priority, and he saw his grocery bill go down substantially because he wasn't, impulse buying. So the simple fact is, make a priority, not a set of priorities. Whatever it is that you're doing at the time, do it well. For example, a plumber. A plumber is singular, a plumber. He doesn't try to be an electrician. He doesn't try to be a gas fitter. He doesn't try to be a millwright. He doesn't try to be a carpenter. He is a plumber. And because he does it well. Now, that doesn't mean he can't do carpentry. It doesn't mean that he can't do millwright, but he has chosen to be singular in his profession, and he does it well, and he earns a good living. That's just a simple example. Don't try to multitask. If you happen to do several things well, that's great, but be singular in your purpose. When you're with your spouse, spend time with your spouse. If you need self-care, do the self-care. If you have time for your family, spend time with your family. Either way, be singular in your purpose, and don't just pile a bunch of priorities upon yourself, because I guarantee you're going to feel stressed, you're going to feel anxious, and you're going to get distracted. And remember, that's why they have fines for distracted driving, because when you're distracted when you're driving, guess what? You can cause accidents, either hurting yourself or others. That's why we need to have a priority, not priorities. Just a thought for you today. Well, if you like what you've been hearing and seeing, of course, I encourage you to press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, as well, check out my YouTube shorts. You see, that is a perfect example of me giving to you one thought, one priority, one thing to think about. Check those out as well. I do them every single day, and they are singular in their thought. I just want to give you one thought, one thing to think about during that little time together. Just like I wanted to give you one thought today. My priority today was not to lay a whole bunch of things on you, but to remind you today that that word priority back in the 1400s, when it was invented, meant one singular thing at one singular time. Today, we've turned it into multitasking, and we've actually made it as something that is very special. Oh, I'm a multitasker. I can do many things at many times. The only problem is something is always left behind, or something is not done as well as it could. And we are designed as people to do the best job we can at that time. And that's why it's important not to try and multitask, but to actually be a person that is singular. I mean, if you can be kind, be kind. If you can be loving, be loving. If you can be a person who can touch someone's day, do that. But be singular in it and not try and do it to everybody in the room. You know, there are people who stand up in these motivational classes and say, okay, everybody, be, these different things. No, be one thing at one time, and you'll do it well, and you'll feel better about yourself, and you'll also help others as well. That's my thought for you today. My name is Robert Dean Steele. Thank you for joining me today. Have yourself a great and godly day.